Welcome to the fourth section of the course. In a previous section, we started displaying data into a list. In this section, we will populate our list with real results from an API by using services. In the first video, we will make calls to a CORS-enabled API using the built-in Angular HTTP service. Then we will build our own service for better code reusability, and at the same time, learn how to circumvent cross-origin issues using JSON-P. So let's start by making our search a real search. So far we had hard-coded results in a getResults method. This has now been removed. Now, as with almost anything else, dependency injection has changed in Angular 2. And for example, the HTTP service, which allows to make API calls, isn't actually available unless you specify that you need it. We're going to need that service throughout the app, so let's request it at the app level. Let's open app.js. And we're going to import HTTP providers from Angular 2/HTTP because HTTP, the service, actually uses a bunch of other services, and this will provide them all to our app easily. So then inside the app class, let's add a meta property called providers, and that's an array in which we put HTTP providers. And now wherever we need, we'll be able to ask for the HTTP service. So let's move to search.js and import HTTP from Angular 2/HTTP. And let's also import inject from Angular 2 core. Now in the constructor, we can do @inject bracket HTTP, meaning provide me the HTTP service. And it needs a local name, let's say HTTP service. We'll need this later, so let's keep it on the object. This.http equals HTTP service. And now we have that service available throughout the object. Now you can see that the nav that was requested in the constructor isn't using inject. Instead, it specifies the type of that variable using the colon. But we can do the same, and that actually does look nicer. HTTP service colon HTTP tells Angular that we want the HTTP service injected, and locally we call it HTTP service. All right, let's make an API call. Within the key has been pressed method, if key is enter, let's call this.http.get, meaning we are making a GET request. And the URL for the API is here in a comment. All we need is to append the current keyword and the request is ready. Now I'm keeping things simple here by concatenating strings into a URL, but we will see a slightly more complex example of request in the next video. Now, unlike Angular 1, where $HTTP returned a promise, Angular 2 has upped it one notch by returning an observable instead. Observables are very powerful ways of handling async processes, but for now, all we need is to use the .subscribe method, and here we will use a callback with a response as parameter. I'm using an arrow function, which is new in ES6. Two nice things about arrow functions. First, the syntax is shorter, and they keep the this scope from outside. So we can just set this.results equals response.json. Now that's a function that makes the response into a JSON object, .results. And you can now see real results appearing depending on what you type in the search box. So in this video, we introduced dependency injection of built-in services in Angular 2, and that allowed us to make an API call to get results for our search. You notice that we did not call the iTunes API directly. Instead, the API provided is a proxy for iTunes, which has cross-origin restrictions lifted.